The funds, the assets, are in the limited partnership owned between you and the trust, which might hold its account in downtown Denver, in downtown Los Angeles. Now, if there's an issue that comes about down the road, under those circumstances, the trustees would have the ability to step in and liquidate that partnership and receive the underlying proceeds. Now, as we said earlier, you shouldn't engage in this planning in the face of a problem. But there's a distinction here that's very important, which is there's a difference between you scrambling when it's too late to move things into this structure as opposed to the trustees who have owned the property, say, for 5 years, 10 years, coming forward one day and saying, wait a minute, well, that's our property, not his. We don't want our property to get mixed up with his problem. We're going to move it. And that's what would go on in that scenario that I described.
If I told you my major asset was my commissions and my renewal compensation that comes in, I expect to be paid to me down the road over the years, the planning might embrace how to look at those commission arrangements too.
Yes.
So that maybe the money is sent instantaneously somewhere else and then comes back to me in another way.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, again, there's a continuum here, and the continuum here is what sorts of assets are easiest to protect, what sorts of assets are harder to protect. A very good example is cash versus real estate. It's very easy to protect cash. It's very movable, and it can be resident in any country in the world. Real estate can generally only be resident in one place, i.e. where it happens to be. That doesn't mean we can't protect it, but that does mean that it's not as easily protected, or we wouldn't perhaps have the same degree of protection as we would with cash or securities or liquid assets. Now, I'm talking about an asset base. If somebody has an income base, yes, we can protect it, but in the same sense as I was just describing about real estate versus cash, it's more difficult to protect a stream as opposed to a base.
What about those commissions, though?
As I say, we can certainly protect those and put in place a structure that would involve them being paid over to a protected vehicle. The difficulty is perhaps, of course, the judge might not care about any of this, and if we're in essence stuck with that asset of income being paid to you by a domestic entity, the income stream might be interrupted by the court. Whereas if that was an asset that was elsewhere to begin with, there couldn't be an interruption in that sense.
This sounds like very intriguing information, because I'm speaking for the insurance agent financial planner whose major asset is their earning power and the commissions that come in, plus the future commissions.
Understood, sure.
Plus, of course, each situation is different. People have varying degrees of other property. But for me to summarize this, Barry, since we're...
I'm sorry, Dick, I know we're short on time, but just to make the quick point that we can accomplish a lot for a plan overall that often involves a mix of assets, the income stream, the home, the securities account. And by their nature, different assets will have received a different degree of protection. But if a client's at a 0 today on all their assets, on that 1 to 10, when we're done with them, we'll get them up to an average of, speaking very generally, an 8 or a 9. And that's a heck of a lot better than a 0.
You know, and speaking for the people listening who day in and day out are talking to clients about their planning, and it's a prevention type of
yes, it is.
Business. And reacting before something happens. I think what we've been saying is that we need to step back and do the same for ourselves and sit down with someone and spend a little time, like an annual checkup on this subject. There's so much to it, Barry, I know that we can't discuss today, but I would like to leave the listener with a means of finding out more information if they're inclined. And that would include how to contact you, how to get more information about this overall subject, possibly call up with a question or find out more information.
To learn more, certainly somebody can visit our website, www.engelreiman.com.
I'll say that slowly.
ENGELREIMAN. There's a lot of information on there. It's not designed to be a salesy site. It's designed to be an informative site. Many of our articles, a lot of other references, a link to my book, the second edition that came out in October, a 600-page text on asset protection, all the different alternatives, comparative charts, etc., published by CCH Chicago Clearinghouse in Chicago. There's a link to the text that people can order if they're so inclined. How to reach us, they can email me, b.engel@engelryman.com. Speaking of the internet, there's, like in most areas, there's a lot of information. Some of it's bad, some is very bad. It's easy to dig all this stuff up. Sometimes the hard part for people is discerning what's good and what's not so good.
Okay, so we have a website, an email address. How about a telephone number?
The old-fashioned way, huh?
Yeah, the easy way.
303-741-1111.
303-741-1111. And you can certainly, if you're listening to this conversation, contact me if you want to know more about Barry, because you'll hear nothing but good reports.
Oh, thank you, Dick.
Well,
as always, it's a great pleasure to talk with you today.
Well, it's true, Barry, and it's important to have someone that you can trust with this type of intimate information when you're thinking about doing something along these lines, because it admits to your own vulnerability, number one. It also means that you have to put on the table and organize exactly what is going on with you and your exposure, and you're going to have to pay a few bucks for good advice. There's no question about that. But like you said, it's a lot less expensive to do it now.
Dick, as usual, you've asked some great questions, and you've brought a very complicated subject into sharp focus, and that's a tribute to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.